Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into an 8th grade lesson from Academy that takes standard biology and totally flips the script. Instead of just dry facts, it presents genetics as an incredible journey to discover how life on Earth is intentionally and beautifully designed. Let's get right into how they map out the biological blueprints that make every living creature completely unique.
But before we even touch the science, the curriculum sets the stage with a massive hook from Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. They want students to know right out of the gate that they are uniquely and purposefully made. The idea here is that bringing this theological mindset to the table makes the science they're about to learn so much more profound.
You are uniquely designed.
So think about it. Every single organism on Earth carries a totally unique set of characteristics. The lesson explained that God used these biological patterns to pack the world with unimaginable diversity and resilience. I mean, whether it's the exact curve of a bird's beak, the density of a bear's fur, or the literal shade of your eyes, these traits get passed down generation to generation. It weaves this gorgeous tapestry of life that's built to survive and thrive.
Next up, traits inherited versus learned.
To really grasp this divine design, we have to split our traits into two buckets: what we're born with and what we pick up along the way. So what is an inherited trait? Well, speaking directly to you, you received a very specific, carefully selected set of genes from your parents. Those genes determine your physical baseline. Think about a friend with perfectly curly hair or a duck with webbed feet built for swimming. They didn't choose that, right? Those are inherited, hardwired genetic instructions.
And here's where the contrast gets really fascinating. On one hand, you have those inherited traits, like your eye color. You didn't have to practice having brown or blue eyes. It was literally written into your genetic code from day one. But on the other hand, you've got learned behaviors. These are the skills you acquire over time through sheer practice and experience. You inherit the eye color, sure, but you have to learn how to ride a bike, read a book, or play the piano. Nailing down this difference is step one in understanding how any organism develops.
Moving right along to our next section, how genetic variation helps.
Let's pause and build a little wonder here. Have you ever thought about why every animal in a given species isn't just a perfect carbon copy of the others? That subtle difference? It's called genetic variation. It's the simple reality that individuals aren't identical clones. And the curriculum highlights this variation as a brilliant survival mechanism. It is an absolute lifesaver, because when an environment suddenly shifts, say a hard freeze rolls in or a new predator shows up, the whole species actually stands a chance because a few individuals will naturally have the right traits for that new challenge.
Let's put this into a real-world scenario. Imagine a quiet pond habitat, and out of nowhere, a brand new predator moves in. Why do some turtles manage to survive this new threat better than others? It's not always just about being the fastest swimmer.
It all comes down to variation. Imagine our pond turtles. Just by genetic chance, a handful of those turtles happen to be born with slightly thicker, stronger shells. When the predator starts hunting, the turtles with thinner shells unfortunately might not make it. But those thicker-shelled ones, they survive the attacks. And because they survive, they live long enough to reproduce, passing those exact strong-shelled genes down to the next generation. Over time, those helpful traits become more common across the whole population. It's an incredible built-in mechanism for long-term survival.
Which brings us to the next section, adaptations for survival.
So now we're transitioning from just random genetic variation into established, specific survival tools. An adaptation is a trait that actively helps an organism conquer its environment. These can be structural, like a physical body part, think of a polar bear's super thick fur, or they can be behavioral, like a flock of birds instinctively knowing exactly when to fly south before winter hits. The curriculum points out that these incredible adaptations aren't just viewed as lucky accidents. They're presented as a reflection of divine wisdom, making life flexible, resilient, and perfectly tuned to its surroundings. And honestly, this next example illustrates it perfectly. Picture the freezing, desolate tundra in the dead of winter. It is a harsh, unforgiving place. But enter the Arctic fox. This little creature has a jaw-dropping structural adaptation. Its fur turns completely white in the winter. It literally vanishes into the snow. It's a double-duty survival tool. It hides the fox from bigger predators while acting as an invisibility cloak so it can silently sneak right up on its own prey. That is exactly what an adaptation looks like in real time.
All right, quick knowledge check. The curriculum tosses in a homework slide here with 5 questions to really lock in the concepts. 1. What are inherited traits? 2. How does variation help a species survive? 3. Can you explain the difference between inherited and learned traits? 4. Give a real-world example of a physical adaptation. And 5. How does Jeremiah 1:5 remind us we're uniquely designed? It's a great way to make sure the 8th graders are tracking with both the science and the theology.
Next up, education intertwined with morality.
Okay, let's slow down for a second, because we're entering the why phase of the lesson. This is really the philosophical climax of what we're discussing today. Grasping the science of genes and adaptations, that is only half the lesson here. The other, deeply important half, according to the series, is recognizing the intentional creator behind the science. The big takeaway is that from the smallest microscopic cells to massive sprawling ecosystems, all of life is interconnected, purposeful, and intentionally designed.
So what's the application? What does the curriculum ask students to do with this knowledge? It says we are called to be stewards of creation. That means taking on a real responsibility to protect life, value the amazing diversity in nature and humanity, and view others with deep respect as fearfully and wonderfully made. It's about combining scientific knowledge with a profound respect for the creator who authored it.
And this brings us right to the core philosophy of the heroesmartacademy series. They challenge the students with this idea. What's the point of knowing all this biology if you use that smarts to make choices that hurt yourself or others? They argue that education without morality is a dangerous road that just leads to hurt. But a mind grounded in spiritual truth, that leads to wise choices and lasting peace.
Drawing from Romans 8:6-7, the lesson highlights a literal promise of peace of mind for those who keep their thoughts spiritual. The series frames this as an absolute truth. They don't just want to churn out smart kids. The goal of this curriculum is to shape students who are peaceful, wise, and spiritually anchored.
To sum up this entire educational philosophy, true education fundamentally requires morality. The curriculum suggests that weaving biblical principles into standard education is the best way to help students truly flourish, avoiding the pitfalls of a purely secular intellect. Because the idea is, when you know how the world works and you know who made it and why, you are pretty much unstoppable.
Which leaves us with one final, incredibly vital question as we wrap up today's explainer. If you view yourself as intentionally designed, right down to your very DNA, and equipped with a specific purpose, how will you use your unique traits to be a wise steward of creation today? It is a deeply fascinating look at how this classroom merges science and faith. Keep learning, keep wondering, and we'll catch you next time.